My husband passed away 10 years ago. Every month since then, I've sent $500 to pay off the debt he supposedly left behind. I always sent the money on the first Monday of the month. Same routine, same receipt, same envelope in my purse. That morning felt like any other. I was standing in my kitchen in Dayton, Ohio, waiting for the coffee maker to finish dripping. The house was quiet the way it always is in the mornings. Just the refrigerator humming and the clock above the stove ticking louder than it should. The phone rang while I was pouring the coffee. I almost didn't answer. Most calls these days are wrong numbers or advertisements, and I've learned not to rush for the phone anymore. But something about the timing made me pick it up. "Mrs. Helen Parker?" the woman asked. Her voice sounded polite, professional, careful. "Yes," I said. "I'm calling from River Valley Bank regarding your late husband, Daniel Parker." Hearing his name from a stranger still catches me off guard, even after all these years. I leaned against the counter without realizing it. "Yes," I said again, quieter this time. There was a pause on the line. I could hear her typing. Then she said something that made the whole room feel suddenly smaller. "Ma'am, we're reviewing old estate records, and I need to confirm something with you. According to our files, your husband never had any outstanding debt with this bank." For a moment, I thought I had misunderstood her. "I'm sorry," I said. "We checked all accounts connected to Daniel Parker," she continued gently. "They were closed shortly after his passing. There were no unpaid loans." The coffee maker clicked off behind me, but I didn't move. For 10 years, I had been sending money. $500 every month. No vacations. No repairs unless they were necessary. No new coat even when the old one wore thin at the sleeves. All because I believed my husband had left a debt that needed to be paid. If there was no debt, I asked slowly, "Then where has my money been going?" The woman hesitated. "Mrs. Parker, who exactly have you been sending the payments to?" That was the moment something inside me went quiet. Not shocked, not angry, just still, because I already knew the answer. Not the bank. Never the bank. For 10 years, I had been sending my money to someone I trusted without question. And the worst part was, she was family. To understand how it happened, I have to go back to the week after my husband died. Daniel passed away in the spring of 2014. It was a Saturday afternoon. He had been outside in the backyard, trimming the hedges the way he always did when the weather started warming up. I remember hearing the clippers fall. When I stepped outside, he was on the ground beside the fence. The doctors said it was a heart attack. Quick. Nothing anyone could have done. People tell you those things to make it easier. It doesn't make it easier. The house felt wrong after that. Too quiet, too clean, too still. For almost 40 years, Daniel had woken up before me every morning. I was used to hearing the cabinet doors, the coffee brewing, the sound of the newspaper folding at the table. After he was gone, the mornings felt like something was missing that I couldn't put back. The first few weeks passed in a blur. Neighbors brought food. Relatives stopped by. Everyone spoke softly, like the house might break if they talked too loud. Most of them went back to their own lives after a while. One person didn't. Daniel's cousin, Linda Parker, stayed close. She lived about half an hour outside town and had always been around at holidays and family dinners. She helped organize the funeral, helped with paperwork, helped answer questions I didn't even know I had. 3 days after the service, she came over with a thin folder under her arm. I was sitting at the kitchen table staring at Daniel's coffee mug. I hadn't moved it yet. She sat across from me and placed the folder on the table very carefully. "Helen," she said softly, "there's something we need to talk about." Her voice had that tone people use when they're about to tell you something you don't want to hear. "What is it?" I asked. She opened the folder and slid a few papers toward me. "They're from the bank," she said. My stomach tightened immediately. Daniel had always handled the finances. Bills, savings, insurance, everything. He kept all the records in a small metal box in the hall closet, and I never had a reason to look inside. "What about the bank?" I asked. She hesitated before answering. "Daniel didn't want to worry you," she said quietly. "But before he passed, he borrowed money." The words felt strange in the room. "Borrowed money?" I asked. She nodded. "He was helping someone in the family." You know how he was. He never said no. That sounded like him. Daniel always believed family should help each other. How much? I asked. She looked down at the paper before answering. About $60,000. My chest tightened. $60,000. We had savings, but not that much. If the bank pushes to collect it all at once, Linda continued, they could come after the house. I looked around the kitchen without meaning to. 40 years of memories in that house. Christmas mornings. Birthdays. Quiet Sunday afternoons. Losing it felt impossible. But there's a way to handle it, she said quickly. I looked back at her. What kind of way? If we make steady payments, she explained, the bank will work with us. They prefer installments instead of foreclosure. How much? I asked. She paused. $500 a month. $500. Not impossible, but enough to change things. I looked at the empty chair across from me where Daniel always sat. If this was a problem he left behind. Fixing it felt like my responsibility. I'll do it, I said. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You're doing the right thing. Then she wrote something on a small piece of paper and slid it toward me. You can send the payments through money transfer, she said. Send them to me, and I'll make sure the bank gets them. At the time, it didn't feel strange. She said she had contacts at the bank. Said it would be faster that way. And I trusted her. She was family. 2 weeks later, I sent the first $500. That night, she texted me. Got the payment. I'll forward it to the bank tomorrow. For the first time since Daniel died, I felt like I was doing something responsible. Something that protected the life we built together. So the next month, I sent another payment. And the month after that. And the month after that. What I didn't realize then was that the promise I made at that kitchen table was about to shape the next 10 years of my life. And it would end with one phone call that made everything I believed fall apart. The first year after Daniel died passed in a way that's hard to explain. Some days felt very long. Other times whole weeks disappeared before I realized how much time had gone by. Grief does that. It stretches the quiet parts and hides the rest. The house stayed the same, but everything inside it felt different. Every morning I still made coffee. Still sat at the kitchen table. Still looked at the empty chair across from me without meaning to. Keeping the routine helped. It made the silence feel less sharp. And once every month, I did something else that slowly became part of that routine. I sent $500. The money transfer office sat on a busy street near downtown. I had never gone there before Daniel passed away, but after a few months the clerk started to recognize me. I would walk in, fill out the same form, and slide the money across the counter. Recipient, Linda Parker. Amount, $500. The clerk would stamp the receipt and hand it back without saying much. Every time, I folded the paper carefully and put it inside an envelope in my purse. Linda had told me to keep every receipt. Just in case the bank ever asks for proof, she said. That sounded reasonable. So I saved every one. Later that evening, she would usually send a message. Got it. I'll send it to the bank tomorrow. You're doing great. The balance is going down. Those messages mattered more than I expected. Paying the debt felt like I was finishing something Daniel started. Like I was keeping the house safe. Like I was doing what he would have done if he were still here. At first, the changes in my life were small. I stopped buying coffee at the diner after church. Canceled a cable channel I never watched. Started using coupons at the grocery store again. None of it felt serious. $500 a month seemed manageable. But small changes have a way of growing without you noticing. When my daughter asked if I wanted to visit her in Michigan one summer, I told her maybe the next year. Plane tickets cost money. The payments came first. When my grandson had a school play, I said I wasn't feeling well enough to travel. The truth was simpler. Gas, hotel, meals. It all added up. 3 years after Daniel died, part of the roof started leaking during a heavy storm. I put a bucket in a spare bedroom and told myself I would fix it once the debt was finished. The bucket stayed there for almost 4 years. I stopped replacing clothes unless they were completely worn out. Put off a dental procedure my doctor recommended. Skipped a few checkups because nothing felt urgent. Each decision seemed temporary. Just one more month. Just one more payment. Linda always sounded encouraging when she texted. You're getting close. The balance is going down. Daniel would be proud of you. Hearing his name like that always made it easier to keep going. By the 5th year, the routine felt normal. I didn't question it anymore. Transfer the money. Save the receipt. Get the message. It became as ordinary as paying the electric bill. One afternoon during the 6th year, I decided to organize my paperwork. I spread the receipts across the dining table and started putting them in order by date. There were more than I expected. Month after month. Year after year. Each one the same amount. $500. I tried to add them up, but numbers were never my strength. Daniel had always handled the complicated parts of our finances. After a while, I stopped counting. Linda knew the balance. She was talking to the bank. Everything was under control. That's what I believed. Years passed quietly after that. 7 years. 8. 9. By the time the 10th year came around, the payments didn't even feel temporary anymore. They felt permanent, like something that had always been part of my life. One evening, after sending another transfer, I sat in Daniel's old armchair and opened the envelope where I kept the receipts. I started counting them slowly. 10, 20, 40, 60. I kept going until I reached the end. 120. 10 years. 10 years of payments. I leaned back in the chair and looked toward the hallway where Daniel's picture hung on the wall. I'm almost done, I said quietly. At least that's what I thought. Because I had no idea that the routine I trusted so completely was about to end with a phone call the next morning. The call came early. I had just finished making coffee and was standing by the window, looking out at the small garden Daniel planted years ago. The phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick it up. Good morning. May I speak with Mrs. Helen Parker? The woman asked. Yes. My name is Karen Mills. I'm calling from River Valley Bank regarding your late husband, Daniel Parker. Just hearing his name made my hand tighten around the phone. Yes, I said. I apologize for the unexpected call, she continued. We're reviewing old estate records and need to confirm something. I leaned against the counter. What kind of confirmation? There was a short pause while she typed. I'm looking at Mr. Parker's accounts, she said. According to our system, they were closed shortly after his passing. That sounds right, I said slowly. Another pause. Then her voice changed slightly. Mrs. Parker, I need to clarify something. Something about her tone made my stomach tighten. Yes, we have no outstanding loans connected to Daniel Parker. For a second, I thought I heard wrong. I'm sorry, what? There were no unpaid debts, she said gently. No credit balances. No loans. My fingers tightened around the phone. That can't be right, I said. She hesitated. Why do you say that? Because I had been paying them. The words felt heavy in my mouth. I've been making payments, I said finally. There was silence on the line. Payments, she asked. Yes. How much? $500 every month. Another pause. Then she asked the question that changed everything. To the bank? My stomach twisted. No, I said slowly. Then, to whom? The answer came before I finished thinking. Linda Parker. The line went quiet. Then the woman spoke again, very carefully. Mrs. Parker, I want to be very clear. River Valley Bank has never received any payments connected to your husband after his estate was settled. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too quiet. I looked at Daniel's picture on the wall. But Linda told me, I started. I can only speak about the bank's records, she said gently. And according to those records, your husband left no debt. No debt. The words kept repeating in my head. No debt. No debt. No debt. I sat down at the kitchen table without realizing I was moving. If there was no debt, I whispered. Then where did my money go? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she said something else. You may want to gather your receipts and speak with a legal professional. When the call ended, the house went completely silent. The coffee in my cup had gone cold. Outside, the garden looked exactly the same as it had an hour earlier. Nothing had changed, except now I knew something I couldn't ignore. For 10 years, I hadn't been paying the bank. I had been paying Linda, and for the first time since Daniel died. I realized the problem he left behind might not have been his at all. After the call, I didn't move right away. I sat at the kitchen table with the phone still in my hand, listening to the quiet in the house. The refrigerator humming, the clock ticking above the stove, a car passing somewhere outside. Everything sounded normal. Nothing felt normal. The woman from the bank had told me to gather my receipts. So that's what I did. Not fast, not panicked, just slowly. At the bottom of my bedroom dresser sat a small wooden box where I kept important papers. Insurance forms, tax returns, old warranty cards for appliances we don't even own anymore. Under those was the stack of envelopes, 10 of them, one for each year. I carried the box to the dining table and set it down carefully, the way Daniel used to do when he handled paperwork. I opened the first envelope. Inside were the receipts from the first year. Money transfer slips, each one stamped and dated. May 2014, June 2014, July 2014. $500 every time. Recipient, Linda Parker. I lined them up on the table. Then I opened the next envelope. And the next. Soon the entire table was covered. Receipts spread out like a calendar of the last 10 years of my life. I counted them once. Then again, slower. 10, 20, 40, 80, 100, 120, 10 years. I reached for the calculator Daniel kept in the drawer near the sink. My hands felt steady. That surprised me. I pressed the buttons one at a time. 500 by 120, the number appeared on the screen. 60,000. I stared at it for a long time. $60,000. Not missing. Not misplaced. Sent. Every month. To the same person. I leaned back in the chair and looked toward the hallway where Daniel's photograph hung on the wall. For years, I had talked to that picture like I was explaining things to him, telling him the payments were almost done, telling him the house was safe, telling him I was taking care of what he left behind. Now I understood something I hadn't understood before. Daniel hadn't left the problem. Someone else had created it. My phone buzzed on the table. A message. From Linda. Hi, Helen. Just checking in. Did the transfer go through today? I haven't seen it yet. For 10 years, that message would have reassured me. It meant the process was working. It meant everything was under control. Now it meant something different. It meant she expected the money, not the bank. Her. I set the phone down without answering. For a long time, I just sat there looking at the receipts. Each one a small decision I thought was responsible. Each one proof of trust. Each one proof of a lie. After a while, I stood up and walked into the living room. Daniel's armchair was still by the window. I sat down in it and picked up the remote, then set it back without turning the TV on. The house felt quiet again. But the quiet felt different now. Not empty. Clear. There was only one person I needed to call. I picked up the phone and opened my contacts. My son, Eric, lives about 2 hours away in Indiana. We talk every week, but I had never told him about the debt. At the time, it felt like something I should handle myself. Daniel's responsibility. My responsibility. Now I wasn't so sure. I pressed the call button. It rang 3 times. Hey, Mom, he said. Everything okay? I hesitated for a second. No, I said quietly. I think something's wrong. His voice changed immediately. What happened? I looked at the table covered in receipts. For 10 years, I said slowly, I've been sending money to Aunt Linda because she told me her dad owed the bank. Silence. Then wait, what? And this morning, I continued. The bank called me. Another pause. What did they say? They said your father never had any debt. The silence on the line felt heavier than anything else that day. Finally, he spoke again, slower this time. Mom, stop sending her money. Right now. I looked at the last receipt on the table. The one from the month before. I already did, I said. He exhaled. Okay, good. I could hear him thinking. That's something he's always done when he's trying to figure things out. Do you still have the receipts? He asked. All of them. Don't throw anything away, he said. Not one piece of paper. I won't. Another pause. Then his voice got firmer. I'm coming over tomorrow. You don't have to drive all the way, I'm coming, he said. Not loud, Just certain. All right, I said. After we hung up, I went back to the dining table and started stacking the receipts into neat piles, year by year, month by month. Step 1, keep the records together. Step 2, don't send any more money. Step 3, find out what actually happened. I wrote the steps on a notepad and left it on the table. Daniel always said things made more sense when you wrote them down. That night, I didn't turn the TV on, didn't read, didn't call anyone else. I just made tea, sat at the table, and looked at the stacks of paper until the clock said almost midnight. At some point, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Linda. Everything okay? The bank gets nervous when payments are late. I read the message once. Then I typed a reply. Had a problem at the transfer office. I'll send it tomorrow. The response came almost immediately. No worries. Just let me know when it goes through. I stared at the screen for a long time. For 10 years, that message sounded normal. Now it sounded like something else. Like someone checking to make sure the door was still unlocked. I put the phone face down on the table. Then I waited for morning. My son arrived the next evening. He drove straight from Indiana without stopping, just like he said he would. When I opened the front door, he was standing on the porch with a small overnight bag in one hand and that serious look he gets when something doesn't make sense to him. Mom, he said, pulling me into a quick hug. You okay? I'm fine, I told him. It wasn't completely true, but it was close enough. He stepped inside and stopped when he saw the dining table. The receipts were still there, stacked in neat piles the way I had left them. He walked over slowly, like he didn't want to disturb anything. These are all of them, he asked. Yes. He picked up the first stack and started flipping through. Month after month. Same amount. Same name. After a few minutes, he set the papers down and leaned back in the chair. That's $60,000, he said quietly. I know. And every one of these went to Aunt Linda? Yes. He rubbed his forehead with one hand and looked around the room. That's not a misunderstanding, he said. That's fraud. Hearing the word out loud made the whole situation feel more solid. Fraud. For 10 years, I thought I was doing the right thing. Now it sounded like something from a police report. He opened his laptop and set it on the table. What are you doing? I asked. Checking something. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. Eric works with computers, so when he gets quiet like that, I know he's following a line of thought. After a minute, he turned the screen toward me. This is the county property database, he said. I frowned. What does that have to do with Linda? You told me she bought a lake house a few years ago, right? I nodded slowly. Yes, she mentioned it at Christmas once. He typed again. A new page appeared. Owner, Linda Parker property location, Lake Logan shoreline purchase date. August 2016, my stomach tightened. That was 2 years after the payments started, he said. I looked at the picture on the screen. Big windows facing the water. Wooden deck. 2 stories. It didn't look like something bought on a small budget. How much? I asked. He scrolled down. $320,000. I leaned back in the chair. You think she used my money? I don't know, he said carefully. But I know this isn't just family drama anymore. He closed the laptop. This is legal. The word made the room feel different. Legal meant paperwork. Records. Rules. Not arguments. Not opinions. Just facts. He looked at the stacks of receipts again. There are 3 things we need to do, he said. I waited. First, we go to the bank tomorrow and get proof that Dad never had a debt. I nodded. Second, we talk to a lawyer. And the third? I asked. He looked at me for a second before answering. We stop sending money. I glanced at my phone on the table. Linda's last message was still there. Just let me know when it goes through. For now, he said, we don't tell her anything. Why not? Because if she knows we're checking, she might try to move things. Money, property, anything. That made sense. For 10 years, I had followed her instructions. Now we were following ours. Step 1, get proof from the bank. Step 2, talk to a lawyer. Step 3, don't warn her. I wrote the steps on the same notepad where I had written the others. He watched me for a second and then nodded. That's good, he said. Keep everything organized. That night, we sat at the kitchen table going through the receipts again. He scanned each one into his computer. Every date, every transfer number, every message she sent confirming the payment. 10 years of records. 10 years of routine. 10 years of believing the same story. By the time we finished, the clock on the stove said almost midnight. "You tired?" he asked. "A little." He closed the laptop. "We'll go to the bank in the morning." I nodded. We turned the lights off and went to bed, but I didn't fall asleep right away. The house felt quiet again, the same way it did after Daniel died. Only this time the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt like something was about to happen. The next morning, we drove downtown to River Valley Bank. The building was exactly where it had always been, on the corner near the courthouse. Daniel had used that bank for almost 30 years, but I had never walked inside alone before. Eric parked the car and looked over at me. "Ready?" "I think so." Inside, the bank was quiet. Soft voices. Keyboards clicking. People standing in line holding deposit slips. A woman at the front desk looked up. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "My mother received a call yesterday," Eric said, "from someone named Karen Mills about my father's accounts." The woman nodded and picked up the phone. A minute later, another woman came out from the office area. "Mrs. Parker," she asked gently. "That's me. I'm Karen. Thank you for coming in." She led us into a small office with a round table and 2 chairs. She opened her laptop and turned the screen toward us. "I reviewed your husband's records again this morning," she said. 2 accounts appeared on the screen. Checking. Savings. Both closed in 2014. "No outstanding balances," she said. "No loans. No credit accounts." Eric leaned forward. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Yes," she said calmly. "We checked every department before calling." I felt my hands tighten in my lap. For 10 years, I said quietly, "I've been sending money because someone told me he owed the bank." She looked at me for a moment before answering. "Then whoever told you that was wrong." She printed a few pages and slid them across the table. These confirmed the estate was closed with 0 debt. Eric picked them up and read them carefully. I didn't touch them right away. I already knew what they said. 10 years of payments. For something that never existed. When we stood up to leave, she hesitated. "Mrs. Parker," she said gently, "if someone collected money from you claiming it was for a bank loan, you may want to speak with an attorney." Eric nodded. "That's our next stop." Outside, the air felt colder than it had that morning. We stood on the sidewalk for a minute without speaking. "Well," he said finally, "there it is." "Yes," I said. The story I believed for 10 years had just ended, and the next part hadn't even started yet. We met the lawyer the next afternoon. Her office was in a small building outside the city, the kind of place with quiet hallways and framed certificates on the walls. Nothing dramatic, just paperwork and people talking in low voices. Her name was Rebecca Sloan, and she shook my hand like she already understood why we were there. "Mrs. Parker," she said, motioning for us to sit at the conference table. "Your son sent me the documents last night, but I'd like to hear everything from you." So I told her. Daniel's death. Linda bringing the folder. The story about the debt. 10 years of payments. I didn't rush. Didn't leave anything out. When I finished, Rebecca folded her hands on the table and looked at the stack of receipts. 120 payments, she said. "Yes. $500 each." "Yes." She nodded once. "That's $60,000. Every time someone said the number, it sounded larger. She turned to Eric. "And the bank confirmed there was no debt?" He slid the printed papers across the table. They checked twice. She read them carefully, then set them down. "This fits a pattern I see more often than people expect," she said. "What pattern?" I asked. "Financial fraud inside families." The room went quiet. Eric spoke first. "It's still fraud even if it's family?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "Being related doesn't make it legal." She picked up one of the receipts and looked at it closely. "Did she ever give you written proof that the money was going to the bank?" "No." "Did she send statements showing the balance going down?" "No." "Did the bank ever contact you about the payments before this week?" "No." Rebecca nodded slowly. "That actually helps your case." "How?" Eric asked. Because it shows the entire story came from her alone. She leaned back in the chair. If the debt never existed, then she invented it. The words sat there for a moment. Invented. 10 years of my life built on something someone made up. Rebecca opened a folder and pulled out a sheet of paper. There are 3 ways this can go, she said. She held up one finger. First, you confront her privately and demand the money back. Eric shook his head. She'll deny it. Rebecca nodded. That happens most of the time. She held up a second finger. Second, we file a civil lawsuit to recover the money. And the third? I asked. She looked directly at me before answering. We report it as fraud and pursue criminal charges. The word criminal sounded heavier than the others. I sat there for a moment, looking at the receipts on the table. 10 years of quiet payments. 10 years of believing the same story. I don't want to fight, I said. You don't have to fight, Rebecca replied calmly. You just have to follow the process. She slid another paper toward me. This is a demand letter, she said. It states that we know the debt never existed and that $60,000 was transferred under false pretenses. I read the first line slowly. Formal notice regarding fraudulent financial representation. It didn't feel like my life. It felt like something from someone else's case. What happens after she gets this? I asked. She has 10 days to respond, Rebecca said. And if she doesn't, then we file in court. Eric crossed his arms. And the police? That's still an option, she said. But first we give her a chance to explain. She paused, then asked something unexpected. Does Linda know you discovered the truth? No, good. She leaned forward slightly. Then for now, you do nothing different. I frowned. What do you mean? You answer her messages the same way you always have. You act like everything is normal. Eric looked at her. You want my mom to pretend? Yes, she said. Why? Because the moment she realizes you're investigating, she may try to hide money, sell property, or change the story. That made sense. For 10 years, I had trusted Linda. Now we were being told to stay quiet and let the facts do the work. Rebecca handed me her card. Gather every document you have, she said. Receipts, messages, bank records. Everything. We already started, Eric said. Good. She closed the folder. I'll send the letter today. When we left the office, the sky outside looked gray and heavy. We stood by the car for a minute without speaking. Well, Eric said finally, it's real now. Yes, I said. For 10 years, Linda had controlled the story. Now the story was written on paper. That evening, my phone buzzed while I was sitting at the kitchen table. A message from Linda. Hi, Helen. Just checking. Did the payment go through today? For a long time, I looked at the screen without typing. For 10 years, I always answered right away. This time I waited. Not because I didn't know what to say, because waiting was part of the plan. I typed slowly. Had a delay at the transfer office. I'll send it tomorrow. The reply came almost immediately. No problem. Just don't wait too long. The bank gets nervous. I read the message twice. Then I set the phone face down on the table. Eric looked up from his laptop. She believes it, he asked. Yes. He nodded. Good. We sat there for a while without talking. The house was quiet again. But the quiet didn't feel like grief anymore. It felt like something was moving forward. 2 days later, the certified letter arrived at Linda's house. We didn't see it happen. We just waited. Day 1 passed. Day 2. Day 3. On the 4th day, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. Linda Parker. For a second, I just watched it ring. Then I answered. Helen, she said quickly. I got a letter from your lawyer. Her voice sounded different. Tighter. Careful. Yes, I said. You didn't have to do that, she said. I think I did. There was a pause. You misunderstood the situation, she said. I stayed quiet for a moment before answering. No, I said calmly. I understand it now. Silence. Then she tried again. The payments weren't exactly for the bank. That's not what you told me. We're family, she said. Yes, I replied. That's why I trusted you. The line went quiet again. Finally, she asked, how much does the lawyer think I owe? $60,000, I said. That's impossible. It's exactly what I sent. She sighed. I don't have that kind of money. That's something you can discuss with your attorney. Another pause. Then she asked the question I knew was coming. You're really going to take me to court? I looked across the room at Daniel's picture on the wall, at the folder of receipts on the table, at 10 years of my life. Yes, I said. And for the first time in the entire conversation, she didn't have anything to say. After that phone call, everything moved faster than I expected. For 10 years, nothing had changed from month to month. Now it felt like every week brought something new. Rebecca filed the civil case the following Monday. Not dramatic. Not loud. Just paperwork. Forms, signatures, copies of receipts, copies of bank records. Eric helped me organize everything into one folder. Every transfer slip. Every message Linda sent. Every document from the bank confirming there was never any debt. 10 years of routine turned into evidence. Rebecca said that was the most important part. Fraud cases aren't about emotions, she told us. They're about records. A few days later, Linda's attorney contacted Rebecca. He didn't argue, didn't accuse, just asked for time to review the documents. That alone told me something had changed. For years, Linda had always sounded certain. Now someone else was speaking for her. Rebecca explained the next step to us over the phone. They want to negotiate, she said. What does that mean? I asked. It means the evidence is strong enough that they don't want this in court. I sat at the kitchen table while she talked, looking at the same spot where Linda had put that folder 10 years earlier. Back then, I believed every word she said. Now every word had to be written down. They admitted the debt never existed? Eric asked. They didn't say it that way, Rebecca replied. But they didn't deny it either. That was enough. A week later, we met at Rebecca's office again. This time there were more papers on the table. Settlement agreement, payment schedule, property disclosure. Rebecca slid the top page toward me. Your cousin has agreed to repay the full amount, she said. I looked at the number written in the middle of the page. $60,000. It looked strange seeing it there in print. Not on a calculator. Not on a receipt. On a legal document. How? Eric asked. She doesn't have the money in cash, Rebecca said. But she owns property. He already knew what she meant. The lake house, he said. Rebecca nodded. She's agreed to sell it as part of the settlement. For a moment, no one spoke. I remembered the picture Eric showed me on his laptop. The big windows. The deck facing the water. I thought about the bucket in my spare bedroom catching rain for 4 years. I didn't feel angry, just tired. And if she doesn't pay? I asked. Then the agreement allows us to go back to court, Rebecca said. But honestly, I don't think it will come to that. She handed me a pen. You can take time to think if you want. I looked at the paper again. 10 years of payments. 10 years of believing the same story. 10 years of doing what I thought was right. I don't need time, I said. I signed my name. The pen felt heavier than it should have. When we left the office, the air outside felt warmer than it had all week. Eric unlocked the car but didn't get in right away. You okay? He asked. Yes. You sure? I nodded. I think so. He leaned against the door for a second. You know none of this was your fault. I didn't answer right away. For a long time, I had told myself I should have asked more questions. Should have looked at the papers closer. Should have called the bank sooner. But standing there in the parking lot, I realized something else. Trusting someone you've known your whole life isn't a mistake. Lying to them is. 2 months later, the first payment arrived. I was sitting at the kitchen table when the bank notification came through on my phone. Deposit received. I opened the message and stared at the number for a long time. Not because of the money, because of what it meant. 10 years of carrying something that never should have been mine. And now it was finally being put back where it belonged. That evening, Eric called. It went through, he asked. Yes. He let out a long breath. Good. We were quiet for a moment. Then he said something I hadn't thought about before. You know what the hardest part was? What? You asked the question. I thought about that after we hung up. For 10 years, I never asked. I just believed the story because it came from someone I trusted. All it took to change everything was one phone call and one moment where something didn't sound right. The house felt different after that. Not because anything changed. The same furniture, Same kitchen. Same chair by the window. But the weight I didn't realize I was carrying was gone. And for the first time in a long time, the quiet in the house felt like my own again. Life didn't change all at once after the settlement. Most mornings still start the same way. I wake up early, make coffee, and sit at the kitchen table while the house is still quiet. The clock above the stove still ticks louder than it should. The refrigerator still hums the same way it always has. The difference now is small, but I notice it. When I sit down, I don't feel like I'm waiting for the next payment anymore. For 10 years, the first Monday of every month meant the same thing. Check the envelope, count the cash, drive to the transfer office, save the receipt. Now the first Monday feels like any other day. Sometimes I still open the drawer where I kept the receipts. The envelopes are still there, but they're thinner now. Most of the papers are in the folder Rebecca told me to keep. Not because I expect to need them again, just because I like knowing the records exist. Order makes things easier. A few months after everything was settled, I finally fixed the roof. It wasn't a big repair, just a section of shingles that should have been replaced years ago. The man who did the work asked why I waited so long. I told him I had other things to take care of first. He nodded like he understood. People don't always need the whole story. Eric calls every Sunday evening now. He always asks the same question first. How's the house? Still standing, I tell him. That usually makes him laugh. We talk about normal things after that. His job, my garden, what needs fixing next. Normal conversations feel different after something like this. Quieter, easier. Linda moved out of the lake house before it sold. I heard that from my sister, not from her. We haven't spoken since the day of the phone call. Not because anyone said we couldn't, just because there isn't anything left to say right now. Rebecca told me that happens a lot. When money and trust get mixed together, she said, relationships don't always go back to the way they were. I believe her. One afternoon last fall, I was cleaning the hall closet and found Daniel's old metal box, the one where he kept all the bills and bank papers. I sat on the floor and opened it for the first time in years. Inside were old checkbooks, warranty cards, insurance forms. Everything neat, everything labeled. That was how he always did things. At the bottom of the box was a small notebook. I flipped through it slowly. Dates, numbers, notes in his handwriting. On the last page, there was a line that made me stop. Paid in full. I don't even know what bill it was for. Probably something small. But I sat there for a long time looking at those words. Paid in full. For 10 years, I thought I was finishing something he left behind. Now I know the truth. The problem wasn't his, and fixing it wasn't my responsibility. That night I made tea, turned off the lights in the kitchen, and sat by the window for a while. The street was quiet. Just one porch light across the road and the sound of a car passing every few minutes. Nothing special. Just a normal evening. And for the first time in a long time, normal felt like enough. A few weeks ago, a woman from church asked me a question after service. She said her sister had been helping her with some paperwork, and something about it didn't feel right. She asked if I thought she was worrying too much. I told her what I learned the hard way. It's not wrong to trust people, but it's not wrong to check the numbers either. Sometimes the truth doesn't show up until you look at the records yourself. She nodded like that made sense. Most people understand once they hear it said out loud. If you stayed with me through this story, I appreciate it. Stories like this aren't about money as much as they're about trust, and what happens when trust gets written down on paper instead of spoken out loud. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps more people find these stories, and it keeps this little community growing. I'm always curious where people are listening from, so leave a comment with your city and what time it is there right now. 2 more stories are on the screen next, and one of them starts with a simple bank statement that didn't make sense at first, but ended up changing someone's life completely.